If you clicked on this video, I would assume you care about language at least a little bit. And the question I have for you is, do you think we're losing the skill in the art of communication? I know this is a loaded question and that there's a whole lot of nuance here. It's impossible to cover it in 1 or 10 videos. It's true that languages are constantly evolving, new words are added, some fall out of use, and just because some structures change or stop being used so much doesn't mean that suddenly the language is in danger and in decline. Of course, there are standard and non-standard varieties, written and spoken English, slang, there are a whole bunch of regional varieties, accents, and so on. I take no issue with that. And I repeat, there is a lot of nuance. But I've been noticing a couple of things for a while now, and I decided to condense my thoughts into probably 2 parts, and that's why I'm here to share some observations. My name is Lana, I'm a linguist by education and artist at heart. Welcome to my channel, and let's dive in. Why does it even matter if we keep our language to some arbitrary standard? After all, isn't it just prescriptivist, restrictive nonsense to try and uphold the oppressive, white, patriarchal standards of old? Personally, I'm noticing that people seem to be pretty indifferent about proper grammar and punctuation and spelling nowadays, and not at all keen on upholding any standards. One of the reasons might be that a lot of our communication takes place online now, more than it did even 10 years ago. And communication online from its inception was different and continues to be very different. Spending time on your favorite social media and apps, you don't have to worry about correct spelling and punctuation. The internet is full of slang words, abbreviations, emojis. Come to think of it, emojis have, in some ways, in some circumstances, displaced punctuation. Raise your hand if you've ever ended a sentence in an online discourse or in a text message with an emoji instead of a full stop. And I do emphasize, I'm not sitting here trying to judge anyone. We all do this to a smaller or lesser extent, and that's perfectly fine. It's just an observation, it is what it is, and it's kind of interesting, really, to observe how our online communication has evolved. But what I personally think is not so good is the fact that offline communication has also taken a bit of a hit, perhaps as a byproduct of online communication. I mean, we scroll through social media and we encounter so many examples of differently capitalized titles, misspelled words, slang words, abbreviations. How is a young person nowadays supposed to know or use language correctly if their primary or even first exposure is to the online environment, which is confusing in so many ways, not just in terms of spelling and grammar?
7th grade English teacher here. When I tell you that these babies cannot read, they cannot write, and they cannot comprehend, I'm not being funny.
These kids can't read. They can't decode. They have no vocabulary, no background knowledge. I've never seen anything like it.
When it comes to spelling, I'm seeing a lot of children who can't even spell the word said, for, mother, father in the 4th or 5th grade.
Why does it matter if you express yourself with an angry emoji or with an exclamation point at the end of your sentence? Why does it matter if you finish your sentence with a thumbs up or with a short sentence? Why does it matter if you spell something like this, or the correct way? Why does any of it matter? This is not just a hypothetical question. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments too. But my take on this is the following. I absolutely think it matters because language proficiency speaks volumes of the standards of our society. Let's go back to emojis for a second. I like them as much as the next person. But it's easy to see how much our use of them has changed. Now, we don't just see them in short informal text messages between high school friends. People of all ages have started using them across social media, and even companies use them. You see emojis in ads, on official websites. It's not standard, but also not uncommon to see emojis in semi-formal business emails. It's a way of trying to be more personable, trying to come across as, more friendly to your employee or whatever. Hypothetically, if we imagine that we're on some long, slow road back towards pictograms as our primary use of communication.
I was in an army experiment, and I'm not feeling so well. Been hallucinating. My head is just killing me. My joints are all achy, and Is this a hospital, or...?
Will we still be able to express our basic needs with just words? Create poetry that could rival the poetry of history? Forget about poetry, songs, song lyrics. Will we be able to write compelling tales that could define a generation? What about romance? Is she truly dead? Today, on many levels, we love to champion the motto, do whatever you want. And I have no problem with that, so long as, you make sure that you're not harming yourself and others. But the thing is, when you apply this principle to linguistics, we create a lot of confusion. And at some point, communication will become murky. Maybe we'll still understand each other, but it will be difficult. Let's say we don't care anymore how you spell the following sentence. They all sound the same, more or less, right? But when you see them written out, if you see them in context, it might be difficult for you to decipher what was meant, or take you more time than would be necessary if you followed the spelling rules. The attitude that linguistic rules are outdated and restrictive, and that this is by default bad and undesirable, demonstrates a failure to recognize why rules are valuable and necessary. We don't have linguistic rules just to annoy people and to make students fail their exams. And none of us speaks perfectly or writes perfectly all the time. We all make mistakes here and there, and that's a human thing to do. But still, it's important to know what is correct so that you're able to express yourself. Rules help us achieve clarity in communication. It's quite the opposite of restriction, really. Proper grammar, punctuation, spelling, it all allows us to express ourselves in many more ways than improper grammar would. Having a rich vocabulary, mastering spelling and pronunciation, this can open so many doors. For example, in art, when you are creating literature. And not just outdated literature, I mean modern media too.
There would have been nothing left to do for someone less astute. He would have been dead or destitute without a sense of restitution. Started working.
And not even just art. It's about everyday communication. Being clear and to the point in your communication with your family and loved ones. Being able to write a persuasive job application. Coming across as perhaps a more favorable candidate at job interviews. If you have a good grasp on your own language, on your, first native language, it's easier for you to understand or learn different foreign languages, which helps you understand different cultures. You are more likely to understand various documents that you may need to sign throughout your life, and less likely to be taken advantage of. Grammar is not the most exciting thing, but it definitely shouldn't be neglected. In part 2, I will discuss where neopronouns fit in all of this, and xenopronouns and all that TikTok pronoun stuff. And also I want to take a closer look at Gen Alpha and their reading, writing, comprehension, because some of the things that I've heard about this topic are quite concerning, to say the least. I don't want this to be all doom and gloom, but I think it's important to talk about things that concern us all, even us foreigners. Nevertheless, it's important to shed a light on things that are happening around us. They are not insignificant. Thank you for watching. Remember to share your thoughts down below and subscribe if you like this type of content. And I will see you next week in part 2. Take care, guys.